I'll talk a little bit about the building the community experience platform. It's quite something different than what we've been doing so far. Like we're adding 4 new products. Let me go to the next slide, actually. We're adding 4 new products. So that means that we need to redefine how we build and maintain and architect our solution. Where we now have the community management system and the cloud platform, like we're doing this for, I think now, like we exist as a company for 16 years. Like we've been doing this for a while. We know what we're doing, but we are taking the next step, right? Like we're going from a product to a platform setting. But yeah, like we're not starting from scratch, right? Like we have already the community management system, we have the cloud platform, and all of those will remain as is. Like we're expanding on that. We're also not gonna remove any of our focus on them, because like we're not introducing now new products and we're gonna focus solely on those. We're gonna be expanding on the left too, as Taco mentioned too. And I think like what is really important in all of the things that we're doing is like we're applying the same principles as always. So we're making sure you have data ownership. Like it's not our data, like we're not here in the business of selling your data like some of the other social media networks and other community systems might do. We're not here to sell ads or anything else. It's your data, it needs to be secure, it needs to be private, and you need full control over it. That also means that like our ISO certification, ISO 27001 certification, like that's being renewed again this year. Like we had an audit, I think like 5 months ago. Like these things are keeping us in check as well. Like we're improving of like what we do in terms of security and making sure that we have our privacy controls in order there too. And as Ako mentioned, flexible and composable. All of the things that we're doing with Open Social has always been to give you flexibility to tailor the application, the product to your unique use cases. It also means that it needs to be composable. Like if you have like already a customer data platform or you have an IAM solution, like for example with the European Commission, we have EU login, or they have EU login already. So that needs to work, right? Like we need to make sure that you can still use this without having us enforce you onto a solution that we're now pushing. In that sense, we are open source also, so we're favor of that. And a lot of the things that we're talking about here will, in some way, shape or form, will go into our open source application. Multiple products requires communication. So where we've been dealing with, I guess, like sort of like a monolith application, if that says anything to you, like it's a single application. So anything in terms of logic and functionality and features happens within that same application. We're changing that now. So we're opening up our application to multiple products. It needs to work seamlessly. It needs to be scalable. It needs to be effective, and it needs to be real time. That's also why we've been thinking about, okay, what is the best way to do this? There's a lot of different options, and we've already been working on integrations with APIs. We've also been working on our own API. Also a little bit more about that down the slides. I think, Jamila, you said to Taco, like you have a lot of slides. Well, I also have a lot of slides, but I'll be talking through some of them really quickly, so don't worry. So in that sense, like we've been thinking about this quite a bit, and I think our mentality of discussing and going really deep in some of the like decisions that we're making and the reasoning behind that has increased. Like we're going really deep in some of the things, and all of the things that we're presenting now too. Like we've already thought about it quite hard, and we're also convinced that we can do it, and we have the way forward with it. So, for example, first, what we need to do in order to have like the different systems connecting and communicating to that is implementing what is known as an architecture style, event-driven architecture. So that means that we have events happening on different products, different applications, and they need to be sent to each other to be able to interact with that. So, for example, there's a few things in terms of like pros or like attributes to the system. that you're seeing on the left, and we're also looking at like this, right? Like fault tolerance. Like, what does it mean? What do we need to make sure that, or what do we need to do to make sure that we can ensure that every message or every event that is ever sent, like, arrives at the application that needs it. So the goal of this system is to have real-time processing, which is important. Like, you don't want to send like a message like 2 days later. Like, you want to do it at the moment that it's needed. And it needs to be scalable, because like we're now adding 4 products, but like all of these can scale too, right? Like, it's maybe now that you're sending 1,000 emails in a month. We've also seen people sending 50 or 100,000 emails in a month. So it needs to scale. And with the things that we're doing, also with engagement automation, like the amount of messages that are being sent might drop a little bit because they're more personalized and you're engaging at the moment that it's needed. But yeah, it needs to scale. So what are events? So we did on the right, you can see a few that we identified. I think we come to 200 that we did in one session. And then we stopped because we knew like we had like the most important ones at this point, and we're going to expand on it now. So like, it's anything that happens on the platform or on a product or on an application. It can be the community management system. It can be the engagement automation itself too, or the Gaia AI that sends like an event like, hey, something processed, something happened. So for example, a user signing up or creating content or engaging with content, liking it, commenting on, like all of these are different kinds of events. So for example, Emma signs up to the platform, and you can see that the community management system is a producer, and we need to send this to a system that can send this to different applications. So we need something that is scalable and that is stable and that can make sure that every message always arrives. That is why we're using an open source tool, Apache Kafka, which is used by, I think, like the largest organizations that are out there, which are like Netflix, LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn even started with this in the very first beginning. That's our message broker. And then we have our event consumer. That can be the marketing automation or the engagement automation, sorry. And that will trigger starting an onboarding campaign that Tak also showed a little bit about. Like, we have the different moments, different emails that you might be sending out. But it could also be that someone leaves a comment, again, like goes through the message broker, and it's saved to the analytics database, or it can be saved to your analytics database in the future too. Or someone grants a role to Fred in this case, and that's saved to the audit log. Like, I think here also these events, like we're capturing these already and we're storing this in our internal logs, but these are also things that we need to expose to you perhaps in the future. So we know that these are things that will be consuming these events in the future. So that is our way of making sure that we can proceed with the future products that we're adding, that we have the scalability to make sure that messages and events arrive there. And one of the things that we'll be using this quite a bit is the engagement automation. Powerful automation engine. So I'm going to highlight just a few things in here because I think like Dominique will also talk about this a little bit more. And he has also vast knowledge about this with his experience with Drop Solid. So again, like applying the principles here, like it's your data, right? Like also with engagement automation, like the things that we're doing there, we're providing you a service, and you can tailor this to how you want, and the data that we're storing that in terms of users, like opening emails or tracking what they're doing. In that sense, it's all on you. Like, we're not selling this; it's your data. Again, here also it's private and secure, so this will be also hosted within full isolation of other clients, just like any other platforms that we have currently. Private and secure. And again, also here, flexible and composable. Here you can tailor the campaigns, tailor the different things, actions that you can do there to your needs, and it's composable. So if you already have like engagement automation, like we can ensure that the events that we're sending out from the community management system will arrive at your own system. So when a user signs up, we'll again like send this to our message broker, and we'll send it to the engagement automation. They will receive the events and it will trigger the campaign that we need to start. So for example, like the one that I copied from Taco Slides, the new account creation, like that is triggered based on a user signing up or a user being created by an administrator. So one of the things that we can do here is we can also differentiate between who acted, right? Like we can say, okay, the user itself created their account or someone else created the account for them. So in that case, like you may want to have like a condition saying, okay, this is a user created by a site manager. Well, don't send the emails or send a different kind of email. And campaigns have several building blocks. So you can have the decisions. So like should be to take an action or not, like they're making a decision on something. Like there's an action that can be executed, which is an email, or it could be an on-page notification. Like all of these things like are already in some way, shape or form existing in our ecosystem right now. So we can also interact with them. For example, also push notifications. Like we've been working on the PWA, the progressive web app, actually in the past weeks, and we've been optimizing that for iOS and also for in general optimizing that. Like these things we can leverage now also with engagement automation to send relevant push notifications at the moment that you need them to. And finally, like conditions to check, like has someone actually reached a certain segment, or that they have enough points to go to a certain level to decide what kind of email might be sent out. So there's a lot of flexibility in what you can do here. And I think this will be very powerful to automate some of the work that you're doing or your colleagues might be doing to ensure that they can also focus on things that they're really good at, right? So going to AI part. Yeah, again here, and I think this is one, like we've been having serious debates about this too. Like, okay, AI and like you can use Open AI, you can use all kinds of AI tools and systems that are out there, and you don't really know always what they're doing with your data, right? Like you don't want to have them index your data. I think we have had a bit of an issue recently with an AI company that was indexing some of our sites, or some of your sites actually, and was doing this like with like thousand people of systems at the same time. So it was indexing, and it was just over flooding everything that you're doing. So there are also these companies out there that are to some sense maybe malicious or evil, maybe even like Google says, like don't be evil. Like there are companies that will use your data, and you're not seeing any of that. I think there's a lot of discussions about this in also with arts and content creation out there. But what we're trying to do here is opening up your data to actually be able to utilize that and maximize the value out of that. Also here, private and secure, like whatever we do, we host in your environment. So we're not sending this out in a shared environment. Like this will be for you only. That also means that with privacy, all of these things like combined, like it's something that needs to be there needs to be boundaries to this, right? So also here we'll make sure that we apply the principles, and I think Taco just mentioned this a little bit of like who can see what data, like that needs to be traceable and it needs to be effective. So we need to make sure that whoever sees an answer is something that they can also access on the platform itself. And again, here also flexible and composable. Composable because like we can switch between AI models. So we have a sovereign AI model, which is like our own model, but we can also use Open AI, for example, or Mistral AI, or I think there's a few EU alternatives out there now too. So what basically happens is that we can take any structured and unstructured data and index it. And it's similar to what we're doing now with a search or like a search engine. Like we're reading what's out there, what's in the content item when it's created. And we're indexing that and trying to match that in the most relevant pieces. So we have our API, Gaia AI API, that is receiving content, that is receiving PDF files or CSV files or Excel files even. Like we can index all of that. And we're using open source tools to to read that and clean it up. Like there are tools out there, Llama Index, for example, that is able to do this very well. Store that in, convert it to a vector view, and then store it into the database. So these things are all using open source tools without any necessary AI models like OpenAI, for example. So that also means that, like, for example, here, the one that on tuberculosis as well, like the text inside of this content is minimal, but there's a 25-page PDF attached to it. So we can index that data and ask, okay, how many people are affected? And it's getting the data from the PDF file. So you're unlocking, like I think there's quite a few examples here that we're seeing the resource library being used with content, but the content itself is only like a few paragraphs and there's a PDF file to attach to it. So we don't have the capabilities right now to search through those PDF files. And this is a really good way to unlock that data and provide meaningful and accurate answers. Also here, like there's like debate, right? Like how accurate is it, and can we trace back to where this answer is coming from? I think these are really important things that we need to address, and we also have capabilities to do that. And how it looks like under the hood. So we have a user query, reaches our API. We're reading and cleaning up the query to understand like what is being asked. And we're again like converting this to a vector view, and then we're looking into like all of the index content of your platform to find the relevant pieces. And then also we know like where this data is coming from. So we know like this is coming from this content item and this file, and we also know like this is this visibility, for example, or is in this group. So we know like where it is and who can view it. We can then rewrite the specific response. So instead of just dumping like a few keywords, like we can rewrite it just like with ChatGPT, it gives you back an answer, and we return the response to the user, all embedded in your platform. And this is similar to what we can do with tags, like we see it, like for example, I think the SDGs that the UN uses, but we also have different organizations with different taxonomies, and they can be quite large. So you also want to make sure that they are applied to your content. So you're structuring that. We're now using that, for example, in the resource library, and you search in different places, and you can also follow these tags, for example, and having this content tagged automatically or suggested tags added at least. Will increase the amount of tags or content that associated with those tags. So you're providing also the content in that sense at the moment that the user wants to receive them. So it's when it's relevant for them. So quickly to the customer data platform, that is something that that we're still in a discovery phase. Like it's something that we will be looking into. Like we know that we have been working that for example, Apache Unomi exists or other open source tools, but it's not something that we're actively developing right now. Also, if you have any ideas on that, like please let us know. Like we're super interested in talking to you. That's also why this day is here. Like we're meeting up and talking about like the things that we're planning for the future. Same with identity access management. Like we have a lot of experience with this. We know what we're doing in that sense. Like we have with the European Commission, we can integrate with EU login. We have single sign-on through Facebook, Google, all of these things. Like we have custom single sign-on with organizations that have their own identity provider. Open Social can act as an identity provider itself as well. So that's actually quite interesting as a basis for utilizing or applying the identity access management tool. Also here, like we know that there are platforms that have, or organizations that have multiple platforms, and this is a way to unlock also managed access throughout these. So we can define, okay, this site manager has access only to this site, or there's a overarching user that can access all of these sites. So we can very fine-grained controls over who has access to which environment. So what about the existing products? What I mentioned, like the community management system or the cloud platform. So what have we been doing there, and what are we going to be doing there? I think there's a few interesting things that are, like we mentioned a bit on the event-driven architecture, which we're working on really hard right now. We've been designing the events for those, and those will be landing in the community management system at first, and this will also be for a large part open sourced. So like events that are being triggered at the moment that you, that someone logs in, for example, like this will all be open source and available for anyone to use and build their own solutions on. But jumping into a few things, so I think one of the things that I've been also very excited about is adding Cloudflare over the past months, I guess. We've been slowly rolling this out. Not everyone is using that yet, but we're slowly rolling that out and ensuring that you're covered with advanced security measures and be able to utilize like performance from a global CDN. I think this is something that we've been struggling with every now and then, like spam attacks, for example. Like that's super annoying. Like it's very intensive work also to clean it up and identify like what is the content, what is valid content, what are the users that we need to block. We have some capabilities there, but this has been a game changer for us. Actually, we've seen, I think, like 2 or 3 attacks happening that we've been able to prevent for sure before we have to do anything. And we had something that we could stop right like in like two minutes, like after knowing that it happened. So there's really powerful things that we can do there, and it helps in general just to protect to malicious attacks. Like we are doing security updates for all of our components, and we do regular application pen testing too. But we always know, like with attackers, like they know they are always targeting what you're doing, right? So with Cloudflare, we'll be able to also mitigate a lot of these different attacks. And we're seeing that it's increasing like our overall performance, and especially for countries in Asia or Africa or South America. Because what we see is that like the page load times for some of these like went down from 2 seconds to like milliseconds. With just a connection building from, let's say, like India to Europe, like that takes a while, and that is not always something that we have in control. But using like Cloudflare, we can minimize that completely. And we're also doing some work here to optimize that further. Like we've been rolling this out and we've been tweaking our configuration there. And it also helps actually to reduce your carbon footprint because like with the CDN, like your data travels to the closest distance, right? So someone in India will get the data in India, the closest to where they are. I think the one that we like, you can see the blue dots, like that is all the different pop-up edge locations that there are that we can utilize. And I think what is interesting is that, and I think also what Platform as H is doing really well, like they're focusing on green energy hosting. And we've also been pushing towards that and migrating some of our projects to use data centers powered by clean energy primarily. And I think now we're almost at 50% of project hosted in data centers with like 23 grams of CO2. Well, I can't really pronounce that, sorry. But it's actually, that's like really low. And those are data centers powered by water, by clean energy. And we're seeing that in general, data centers are becoming more green, more clean energy, using clean energy. But it's a slow process. And I think this is something that will take like 10, 15 years still. But we already have the option to utilize data centers at this point, and we're migrating sites to those to make sure that we reduce your and our carbon footprint. Also here, what I mentioned, security, like we are ISO 27001 certified for 3 years now, and it's embedded in our organization. So here also, we're being audited every year. We're doing application pen testing. We're taking this very, very seriously, and we also can give you the confidence that we do the measures that we need to take and follow here industry best practices and standards. One of the other things that we are working on that is is that launched a little bit already, but we're finalizing and wrapping up. Is a big core upgrade of one of our components. We're like the groups in Open Social. That's a common thing that you're seeing, and we're upgrading it to the latest version. That means that we need to change a lot of code. We need to refactor a lot of things, but it's also something that we have been rigorously testing already over the past 2-3 months. And it's something that we've launched bits and pieces of already. So, for example, one thing that we recently released is the migration from the older group types, if they're still in your platform, from like open or public or closed groups to the flexible groups, so that have a better access and visibility management in one single place. And this change also helps us to create new features on groups much more easily without having to replicate this all actually over 5 or 6 different places. So this is something that we might, you might see a little bit of this, but it's a major thing that we've been doing, and it's clearing up now, and we're focusing again like on new features there too. One of the things that I'm also really excited about is, and we've been talking about for a long time too, is our opening up our API. So we have been working on the GraphQL API, and we have the users now working. We've also designed the groups API. We've been also using this in alpha phase, and some pilot projects already to see like what can we do with it and what kind of user case do we have here. I think this is also somewhere that we love to get your feedback on. If you want to try this out, get like early access to this, like just ping me or ping someone from the team, and we'll be able to get that and provide you with the necessary information to give it a try. Because I think like here, like we're adding some products now to the CXP, to the Community Experience Platform, but we also know that you have your own products, your own systems, and you want to do like an analysis, for example, on certain data. Like you can safely get that out of Open Social, out of the community management system. Sorry, I'll make that mistake a few times more. Webhooks and Zapier, kindly sponsored by Greenpeace, and this is something that I'm also personally very excited about. It's something that we can send out event data that we talked about, like user signing up, a user liking a content, or a user being given a role, for example. We'll be able to send it out to you in real time. So also here, like we're working on this currently. If you have information like use cases that you want to see supported, or events that you want to have supported, because now I think like we're focusing on some core events like use around users and groups and events and memberships. But I think 20-30 slides back, I showed like the image of like the 200 events that we identified. Like we have a lot more. So if you can help us with prioritizing that list so we can add them, we'd be very grateful. Webhooks. And that also uses the message broker in this case, like an event being triggered on the community managed system, goes to the message brokers, we send out a webhook. And this could be something that you can use to update your CRM in real time. You can send out an alert on Slack or Microsoft Teams, for example. Like some content is reported as spam or has bad content, let's put it like that. You can send an alert out right away. Or you can create the task in your project management tool. Someone suggested an item for the resource library. Like you don't want to act on it maybe right away, but it can create a task in your project management tool at this point. And I think like the options here are almost limitless and can be really focused on and tailored to what you need. Also, some things that we've been doing over the past period that we've already released is like the usability in the sidebar and navigation block. And this is something that we're also going to be rolling out in the coming time to multiple other places to make sure that we have a consistent feel and look on these items. People admin overview, we had like a lot of different filters there. Like we hit them, made it a little bit nicer. Also rolled out already. I think this one is also a long time coming. But we recently released, I think, 2 days ago, a change that we're now configuring. So it's not really going to be effective right away, but it's something that we'll be doing in the background, and we'll be seeing some big changes over the coming time in terms of performance, in terms of like what the server actually gets to do. Because what we now have is that private files are all, like any file that you're looking at on the website, they're all checking to see, like, do you have access to this file? But it's very resource intensive. Like, we need to check, like, is this file, do you have access to this because you're in a group X, Y, Z, or do you have a certain role, for example? Like, that's quite resource intensive. For example, if you are on a dashboard and you have 20 images being loaded, like, that needs to check that every time. We have found a solution to reduce that, improving our cache rates and also the time to display. And this is, again, like very much so for users like that are in Asia or Africa. Like, they will get this from their edge location, very close to them. Especially images will help. So I think this is from 30 days ago, and this is only for a subset of what we're doing. And now we already can see, like, with just minimal configuration, that we increase this like over 50%. And I think we can get this, because we only made few changes. I think we can get this much higher, and that will like have impact on overall performance. I think anyway, like, we're also looking at performance. Like, it's always a hot topic to make sure that it's faster and things get fixed. We have some more initiatives there, and we know that we have tooling in place to improve on the performance, and we'll be doing that also in the releasing bits and pieces of that and changes over the coming time. Not all of the things that we're working on are like product related, I guess. They're also process related, and also things that we are doing in terms of internal optimizing of process, development process, engineering process, but also support. And this is one thing that we have in you may or may not have seen this, but we added a status page. So if there's an incident that we have, or there's an upcoming maintenance, you can subscribe on the top right on the button, and you can get a notification of when something is happening or when we have an issue, what we're doing to resolve that. You can find this on status.getopenSocial.com. Happy to have you subscribe to that. So going back to the community experience platform, it's ambitious, but I'm also very confident that we can build this. We have been around for a long time, and we've been building Open Social for a long time. And we're now taking the next step from building just the community management system in the cloud platform to integrating with multiple other products that we know will give a lot of value to your organization and to your end users as well. And we're really happy to be able to doing this. And we're doing this step by step. We're doing this in the open philosophy that we always have. Open source tooling, security, privacy. All of these are fundamental principles that we'll be applying to anything that we're doing. And again, very happy to have you talk to us on your use cases or concerns or ideas on what we can do. And very happy to be talking about this also later today.